Hey guys, in just a couple of seconds, I'm going to share with you the Heart of Faerie Oracle by Brian Froud. I'm going to give you a chance to see what the imagery looks like and tell you what this deck's all about. Hello and welcome to my channel. If you are here for the first time, welcome. I'm Leesa. I'm a certified tarot consultant whose goal is to help you leverage the power of the tarot and navigate the future and make your life amazing. And on this channel, you're going to find a lot of tarot related videos like month ahead readings and tarotscope readings and deck walkthroughs like this one. So if you're new here, hit that subscribe button. Make sure you get next month's tarotscope and month ahead reading. But let's take some time to look at the Heart of Faerie Oracle by Brian Froud. So what I want to do in this video, guys, what we're going to see is we're going to talk just a little bit about Brian Froud. We're going to look at the history of the deck. I'll be flipping through the imagery during the whole time, and I'll give you my thoughts on this as well and what I think it's really good for in terms of getting a reading with it. So, and stick around to the end, guys. I'm going to tell you, Brian Froud oftentimes is asked, does he believe in fairies? And I want you to hear the answer. I think it's really fantastic. So I'll put that right at the end as we are finishing up. But what I'm going to do is kind of flip through these cards just a little bit. And while I do that, we will talk about the artist. So I love the backs of these. Okay, and we'll just start by flipping through, and then we'll talk about Froud while we are doing it. All right, so if you guys are not familiar with Brian Froud's work, he is a British artist and illustrator. He has illustrated multiple books. He was the conceptual designer for the movies Labyrinth, which to me, this is a very labyrinth feel to it, this card right off the bat, and The Dark Crystal. So if you're like me and you grew up loving those films, you will recognize his work right away. If you are into fantasy or the fantasy genre, you're probably familiar with his work, and I actually grabbed a couple of things here just to share. So this just came out recently, this artwork on the front. This is from The Dark Crystal. By the way, he was there for the most recent Dark Crystal series that Netflix did. So that's an example of a book that he has. He did Lady Cottonton's Pressed Fairy book. If you guys have ever seen this, this is fantastic. This came out, it was one of these, supposed to be real books. This is about this young girl who's squishing all these fairies in a book, which actually sounds pretty terrible if you think about it, but the artwork is a lot of fun. And then probably one of the more important ones to discuss real quick is this book, Good Fairies, Bad Fairies. And so this book was neat because you flipped it over. And so the bad fairies were on one side, the good fairies were on the other. But the reason why this one is so important is this book actually ended up leading to him getting quite a bit of work. And I think it may have led to him actually doing, one of his first decks. Okay. So this deck was created just after 2007 or so. Brian had published another book at that time, and this one is actually a follow-up to his original fairy deck, the Fairies Oracle deck, but the focus is a little bit different. The focus of this book, the focus of this deck is all about love and relationships. So how to give insights on relationships, how to approach them. And he had his wife, Wendy, actually go ahead and work with each of the images to go ahead and write the text for the book. So she actually said that she did a lot of study. She had to do this, I think there's 65 here, so she had to do this 65 times where she'd sit down and really sit with the cards and see what messages were coming through. Brian said she was perfect for being the translator for this work here. So my thoughts on this, I love a deck that's specifically related to relationships. So I think it's great for relationships reading, but I think it's important to understand that when they're talking about relationships, they're not just talking about romantic relationships that you might have with a person. They're talking about getting a better understanding of love just in general. So this could be platonic love, it could be romantic, it could be self-love. You could be talking about love for society or love for a project. Okay, it's all about that heart connection. That's what this deck is all about. And they divide them into 7 groups. And if you read through the guidebook, you know, they talk about this idea of traveling to the land of Faerie and who you would meet along the way. So they divide them into 7 groups. So you have fairy queens and consorts and tricksters and sprites and, you know, the journey along the way. So I think it's certainly a very, very fun deck. Brian actually says that he wants his art to have a feeling of mutability about it. So every time you look at it, he wants it to be like retelling a story and having it have a life of its own. But I love Brian Froud's work. When I was young and was watching the movies where his art was basically displayed, of course I didn't know who he was. My husband actually introduced me to his work. These are his books. But, you know, I've just really grown to just love and kind of see where his art goes and what it represents. And I just feel like he's someone who lives a very magical life and is able to tap into quite a bit of amazing things. Oh, I love this particular card. I think I love it because I think there's just so much to see here. And there's even like this little rainbow here. Oh, in this card, I was just hoping this card would show up. This card I love. So when you look at this card, it says the crone, and you know, it's got this gnarly old crone here staring at you. But the fun thing is if you flip it, you can see she's kind of smiling, see? So this is one of those cards that get flipped over, which I do just love. So the artwork, I mean, it's definitely Brian Froud. It's noticeable right off the bat. This is one of those where, you know, I think in a month ahead reading or year ahead reading, I think it can be really useful because you can work with the imagery, and like Froud was saying, you are able to go back repeatedly and hopefully experience the story behind the images again and again and again. But let me tell you what he said, and I love this quote. Okay, so when people ask him, do you believe in fairies? This is what Froud says. He says, the best answer I can give is that I don't have much of a choice in whether I believe in them or not, for they seem to insist on me painting them. I paint by intuition, and fairies keep appearing on the page before me. Mind you, it's not that I lie around on a chaise lounge waiting for inspiration to strike. Painting is a discipline, and I'm in my studio working on a regular workday from 9 to 5. But on Monday morning, I'm often not sure exactly what I'm going to be doing next. I'll get out my tools, I'll get to work, and something will demand to come through. Some creature will form on the page before me, demanding to say hello. And I think it should be noted that Froud has what his wife calls true sight. She really believes that what he paints is not coming out of his head. She believes that it's something that is being sent along from what she calls the land of Faerie or whatnot. So she believes that what he's seeing are things that are actually there and somewhat real and being communicated to him, not being created inside of his head, which I think is so much fun. So if you find this useful, guys, please go ahead and hit the like button. And I have a number of other tarot walkthroughs. So if you enjoy learning a little bit about the decks and seeing some of the different art, certainly go ahead and I'll put the playlist up there for you, but go ahead and take a look at that. And of course, if you haven't subscribed, please certainly do so. You can also reach out to me if you'd like a private one-on-one reading. Be happy to speak with you there. But thanks again for hanging out with me, guys, and looking through this deck. I absolutely love it. To me, it's a very summary deck, so I enjoy going through it. And hopefully I'll catch you on the next month ahead reading.